name is Jawaharlal Kaul. I am the president of Jammu Kashmir Study Center. I have been the subject today that I am discussing with you is the importance and relevance of LALITADITYA, Muktapid, to our youth, to our vision. The history of Jammu and Kashmir begins with a hoary past with the lake of Satisar. But Kalhan's Raj Tarangani gives us a river of kings and queens. Among them is one of the greatest rulers of Jammu and Kashmir and perhaps one of the greatest rulers of India as well. LALITADITYA Muktapid was an unusual king with an pan-Indian vision, born in a regional atmosphere. He was the only king who could foresee the forces of gathering around him and the dangers inherent. It has been said that the Indian kings have never looked beyond their territories. They have been confined to their own kingdoms and the areas they govern, with the result that the enemies, when approached on their doorstep, they are not able to contain the danger. Whether it is Alexander or of the dead Babar or anybody else, they had taken advantage of this complaisance of the Indian rulers. We have heard about an ancient king, Raghu, who was the ancestor of the Rama, who thought about the whole India and the beyond. He marched out of India through Afghanistan into the Central Asia, and via Iran, he returned through Tibet back to India with his victorious armies. But Raghu is a very old king, ancient history. We cannot corroborate it by the modern archaeological evidences. But in recent times, we have another example. In Punjab, Maharaja Ranjit Singh was a king with a strategic sense. He knew that all enemies come through Afghanistan. He knew that this is a door to invite the invader to India. He had to take care of it. He cannot confine his interest to the Punjab only. That is why he sent one general, Hari Singh Nalwa, with an adequate army to subdue the restless tribes of Afghanistan, which was sometimes called Gandhar. Hari Singh Nalwa's attack on Kabul was a strategic feat, excellent strategic feat by Maharaja Ranjit Singh. He scattered the tribes and made sure that there is no invasion into the Punjab after that. The only invasion after Hari Singh Nalwa's raid in Kabul took place more than 100 years in 47 in Kashmir. But we have unfortunately forgotten one of our greatest sons, greatest kings, the LALITADITYA of Kashmir, whose entire defense policy was based on strategic considerations. He was a totally strategic king, and he always thought about distant entrances, distant Himalayan passes to guard his own territory. It is important to note that Lalitaditya Muktapir was born in a regional area, in a valley surrounded by hills and mountains and passes. But his vision was pan-Indian. He thought about India. He was aware that to guard his own territory and kingdom, he has to secure the openings and doors through which the enemies come. So Gandhara, which is now called Afghanistan, had to be guarded, had to be made secure. Although in those days, Afghanistan was ruled by Hindu Shahis. Hindu Shahis was a tribal kingdom, but before the advent of Islam, they were part of the Jammu and Kashmir state. They were aligned with the King Lalitaditya, but Lalitaditya was not satisfied with this only. He knew that the Arabs were knocking at the door of Afghanistan. They are advancing towards Afghanistan. If they grab Afghanistan, they can easily enter into Punjab and the rest of India. Therefore, he had to stop them there, not at the territory, at the boundaries of Jammu and Kashmir state, not at the boundaries of Punjab, but at the boundaries of Afghanistan itself. So he marched with an army, entered Kabul, ensured that the Shahis are strengthened in force, and even invaded the areas beyond Afghanistan in Tukharistan. He again was aware of the dangers that was lurking in the sea. In western side of India, on the shores of Arabian Sea, Arabs were trying to enter Sindh via sea. Umayyad Khalifas were expanding their Islamic empire towards India. In fact, Sindh was captured by Muhammad bin Qasim, who was the governor of the Umayyad Khalifas. Lalitaditya was not aware of this invasion at that time. He could not intervene. But later on, when the governor of Sindh tried to enter Punjab, Lalitaditya marched to the borders of Punjab and confronted the Arab forces. After a small battle, Arab forces retreated and never tried to enter Punjab as long as Lalitaditya was alive. He was also aware that his northern boundaries, his northern borders are not safe, because in the Himalayan terrain, hilly tribes were always restless, always rebellious. In those days, Tibet was an aggressive empire. It was so aggressive that some of the parts of China also were grabbed by the Tibetans. Tibetan forces were entering the tribal areas of Dardistan and Kamboj areas into the Indian territories. Therefore, Lalitaditya made a decision. Because China and India both were sufferers from the invasion of these tribes and the Tibetans, therefore he made an alliance with China. In history, probably this is the first alliance between the two kingdoms to safeguard their common interests. Chinese were allowed to put an army of 20,000 people at the banks of Wular Lake. This Wular Lake was in those days called Mahapadmasar. And in a combined operations, Lalitaditya and Chinese forces repulsed the invaders, secured the borders, and an Indian ambassador was stationed in the Chinese court. According to that Indian ambassador, Lalitaditya had secured all the 4 doors. What he meant was all the 4 routes through which enemies can enter Kashmir were secured by Lalitaditya. His strategic sense carried him to other places of India as well. But it was not always for lure of money or lure of land that he invaded other countries. He always made friendship treaties with many other smaller states of India, so that there is a combined strength to face if any foreign invasion takes place. We have the evidence of 2 Chinese pilgrims, 2 Chinese historians who have written extensively about Lalitaditya and his times. It is said that 8 smaller kings joined together to elect Lalitaditya as their leader. In spite of his being a warrior king, he was also a revolutionary in cultural sense. While he was campaigning in India, in Indian subcontinent, he entered the territory of the King Yashovarman. It was this kingdom in those days was called Kani Kubj. Now it is called Kanauj. The king of Kanauj, Yashovarman, knew the strength and quality of the Lalitaditya. He didn't want to fight with him. He proposed a friendship treaty. A friendship treaty was prepared. Documents were prepared. But by misunderstanding of the bureaucracies of both the kings, it turned into a battle. Yashovarman lost. And when Yashovarman asked Lalitaditya what type of booty, what type of bar booty he wanted from Kanauj, the Lalitaditya surprised everybody by saying that I don't want any money, I don't want your land, I don't want to depose you from the throne. I want a scholar, a particular scholar from your court to accompany me to Kashmir. When they asked the named scholar, he named a person called Atrigupt. Atrigupt was a Shaivite. He was a worshipper of Shiva and teacher of a Shaiva philosophy. But Lalitaditya was not a Shaiva. Lalitaditya was a Vishnu worshipper. He called himself Bhagavat. Why should a Vishnu worshipper ask for a Shaiva scholar. The Atrigupta was established in Srinagar. He was helped to build his own ashram and propagate the Shaiva theory. And again, in those days, Lalitaditya realized that it is not the wealth only, it is not the armed forces only that makes a country great. It is also the thought, the culture, the architecture and art that must thrive, because all these together make a country great. In Kashmir, there was a tradition. Every king respected every religion, whether he believed in that religion or not. Every king helped the institutions of other religions. For instance, if there is a Buddhist king, he also helped the Vaishnava institutions and mandirs and dharmshalas. If there is a Shaivite king, he also did the same thing. He also helped the Buddhists. For instance, Lalitaditya, being Vaishnavite, he built the largest Buddha statue that it is said, historian Kalhana says that this statue was so tall that one could only see the sky above it. This was known as Brihat Buddha, large Buddha. Similarly, he promoted the Shaiva philosophy in such a way that in few decades it became a great movement. It is said that the rise of Shaivism in Kashmir during 8th and 9th century AD was actually the Lalitaditya's vision. He visualized that if Shaiva philosophy degenerates, Vaishnava philosophies degenerate, it becomes only a ritualism, then the philosophical essence will be lost. Although he knew that great Shankaracharya had already defeated the most of the Buddhist scholars, and Buddhism had actually disappeared from the rest of the country, also from mainland Jammu and Kashmir. But to Lalitaditya, it did not mean that it is the end of exchange of thought. He always wanted exchange of thought and dialogue between various religions and various cultures. That is why that he always remained a Bhagavat. He always remained a Vaishnava worshipper, yet he promoted the Buddhist culture in many ways. In fact, he built so many viharas and with stupas, with all the facilities for foreign Buddhist scholars to study there. In fact, some of the Chinese scholars, travelers had lived in the viharas built by Lalitaditya. One of the famous such scholar was Kang. Kang was a Chinese scholar who came to India in 8th century and just after the rule of Lalitaditya. He says he stayed in one of the viharas built by Lalitaditya Mukta Pid. Another Chinese scholar who came to India just before Lalitaditya has recorded that in Jammu and Kashmir, it was in those days a crucible for cultures. It was a hub of exchange of different cultures, different cultures. And he also records that Jammu and Kashmir was extended from the Kashmir Valley up to the Kabul Valley. It is said that the kings of Jammu and Kashmir always respected the different religions and different cultures. But Lalitaditya was again different from rest of them. He was a warrior, he was an invader, he was a victorious king all over India. But he believed in exchange of cultural sects and cultural philosophies and cultural roots on an all India basis. Many scholars from many states of India traveled to Kashmir, remained in the dharmashalas built by the king, and promoted their religion without fear. Lalitaditya was also a great builder. Unfortunately, many of his buildings and temples, and even the great Buddha statues, no longer exist now. But one monument exists today, which is a proof of the excellence of the art and architecture of that age. That building is known as Martan Temple. Martan Temple is a great heritage of India. It was built in more than 100 acres of land, but now, what is now protected monument is only on part of that original land. But even that part of the temple that exists today is so elegant, so vast and spacious, so beautifully designed that today it is considered to be one of the greatest heritage of India. In fact, it is built on a hillock, and the Sun Temple is built in such a design that sun always shines on one or the other part of the temple. There's a great system which for drainage of the temple premises and also water distribution in the entire temple area. Lalitaditya also built several towns, but 3 towns have remained in the public memory for centuries after the death of Lalitaditya. One town was called Lalitpur. Lalitpur became famous because one of the greatest philosophers of Kashmir, Abhinavgupta, wrote his book Tantralok in that town. Tantralok is an encyclopedic work of Abhinavgupta known world over, of 2,000 pages. But there are so many claims about the location of this town. Since no clear archaeological proof has been obtained so far, therefore it's not possible to locate the town clearly. Second town he built was Lokpunya. Lokpunya was built by the king for Vishnu worshippers. There is a great Vishnu temple in that town, and those who wanted to have a separate town for their own, for the worshippers of the Vishnu, this Lokmanya was created. But third great town that he built was Parihaspur. Parihaspur was on the confluence of river Jhelum, which was known in those days as Vitastha, and river Sindhu. Sindhu or Vitastha joined at that point. But previously, these two rivers joined at a different point. A great engineer Brahman known as Suya rearranged the flow of the two rivers. He was the first engineer, probably in the world, who invented dredging. He dredged the two rivers, he desilted them so that they started meeting at a different place. This place is about 16 to 18 kilometers down the stream from Srinagar. He was also builder of great dharmshalas, which in those days were called as viharas. Every member of the family of Lalitaditya built one or other building in his name or in the name of his own god or goddess. One of the great things about Lalitaditya is that although he was the king of Jammu and Kashmir, and he defeated most of the kings of North India, yet he never annexed the territories of any king. His territories were territories of Jammu and Kashmir in those days, including parts of Himachal Pradesh today, not Punjab. Although he had marched with his armies through Punjab several times. He even did not annex the parts of Afghanistan which was a tributary to the Kashmir kingdom. Therefore, Lalitaditya believed that a great king is not by virtue of the land he rules on, but a great king is a person whose people are wealthy, whose people are happy, whose people are free to exchange their ideas and worship their gods as they wish. One of the greatest attributes of the King Lalitaditya was that he promoted culture throughout India. It is said that he visited along with army the 7 Konkanas. 7 Konkanas means parts of the Kerala and today Tamil Nadu and parts of Karnataka. But especially he visited Kerala and established a town on the model of his own city. At that time, Srinagar, which is now known as Srinagar, it was called Pravarpur. The Srinagar is a later name. At that time, the time of the Lalitaditya, it was Pravarpur. The city that he built in Kerala was on the model of his own town. It was around 64 temples. Every temple has had a village to protect it, to worship it, to provide provisions for the temple. Today, the Brahmins of Kerala, known as Nambudris, still claim, when they claim the origin, they find their origin as Brahmins of Kashmir. The idea was not to annex the Kerala. No king could rule Kerala in those days from Kashmir. Kashmir is the topmost, northernmost territory of India, and Kerala is the southernmost. It is impossible for a king living in Kashmir to rule Kerala. And Lalitaditya did not want to rule the Kerala. Lalitaditya only wanted to promote a culture and develop the lands that he visited. He is also known for promoting literary activities. It is said that during his time, many literary organizations were functioning in his territory. In fact, Lalitaditya probably was the only king, only monarch in Indian history, not only in Kashmir history, but in Indian history, who did not confine his interest to his own territory, own kingdom, who wanted a pan-Indian view, a vision which made him part of a great India, part of a single India, although politically different, politically independent, culturally one. In history of Kashmir, we have had so many great kings. It is said that Srinagar city, today's Srinagar city, was originally built by Emperor Ashoka, the Mauryan king. During Ashoka's time, we had the Buddhism flourished. We have also other great kings like Harsha and Kanishka, the Kushana kings. In Kushana's time, a conclave of Buddhist scholars took place. We also have kings who promoted development, as has been already said. Dredging in the rivers, managing the floods was first promoted in Jammu and Kashmir by engineers, by their own brilliance and tactics. It's also clear that Abhinav Gupta, one of the greatest scholars of Shaivism, belonged to the J&K. And the rise of Shaivism goes as much to Abhinav Gupta as it goes to the Lalitaditya, who created the situations for its rise. And therefore, when we talk of the Lalitaditya Muktapid, he was unusual king of a full all India vision, who considered himself part of the great Aryavarta, and always worked in such a way that his kingdom should contribute to the growth of culture and architecture in the rest of India.